All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am Emma Toops. I am the Executive Chair for American Warriors and the facilitator for the Purple Connection. This event is hosted and sponsored by Toops Consulting, LLC. David and I are connectors, coaches, and consultants in Toops Consulting, where our work is focused on supporting students and adults in career and academic transition. We thank you all for being here. Welcome especially to those for whom this is your first Purple Connection event. For our new attendees, thank the person who invited you. They felt you might benefit or contribute by being a part of the TPC community. And to our regulars, it's good to see you again. Here is the event agenda. I'll do a quick introduction to American Warriors and the Purple Connection, which then will be followed by our educational networking program. We will have 3 organizational representatives make remarks, one being a veteran entrepreneur, one representing a community organization or military support nonprofit, and then our third panelist will be a military-friendly company representative. That will be followed by a Q&A with the panel and the community, and then I will do transition tips to close up the educational networking program. I'll wrap up the event by sharing how people might get involved in future events and activities, and that should take approximately an hour. All right, so the first thing is an introduction to American Warriors and the Purple Connection. American Warriors is a special interest group of the ACA Business Club, which is a private club with the philosophy that business flows out of relationships. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Thus, members are committed to creating solid connections and practicing the fundamentals of strategic networking and relationship building. American Warriors then are club members who have an affinity with or support those who have served our country in public or military service. The mission statement for the American Warriors group is to prevent educational and networking opportunities for patriotic citizens who are leaders in business and support the transition into private and public sector opportunities for active duty service members and first responders. The Purple Connection is one vehicle that the American Warriors group fulfills its mission. So the challenges of transitioning from the military is a very well-researched problem. It's evident by the multitude of military support nonprofits and community organizations that provide services to address them. Driving Community Impact was a white paper published in April of 2015 by the Syracuse University Institute for Veterans and Military Families. They conducted several years of research and received thousands of surveys and found that the leading gap of this challenge was not that there was a lack of services and support, but a lack of connectedness of the services and support. Very often, transitioning military feel a loss of purpose. They may feel isolated or misunderstood, or they feel overwhelmed for their need of help, or are feeling disconnected or lack affinity to the people and culture of their new environment. Next slide. So how do you solve it? You create a partnership of stakeholders who have a common goal for supporting American Warriors. The Purple Connection is a community of partnered stakeholders with a common focus of service, support, and care so that we can effectively address the challenges of transition. So what's up with the name? There's actually 2 reasons for it. In government jargon, the color for joint is purple. When our military is operating overseas on a deployment, that environment is comprised of a multitude of seemingly disparate entities with various purposes, but they have a common purpose through the operation that unites and focuses their effort. The Purple Connection is an attempt to replicate this type of joint environment to support the American Warrior in transition. Another reason is that when you combine the colors of red and blue, you get purple. In the Purple Connection, we are facilitating the connection of individuals who identify more closely to either the military community or the military support and business community. And when they come together, it's a Purple Connection. Here are the vision and mission for the Purple Connection. We create awareness to enable access and then empower action through collaboration and encouragement to expedite reintegration, support growth and healing, and enable opportunities. We do this by regularly bringing together community experts and facilitating connections through educational networking. Here's the rules of engagement for our panel program and networking. Each participant will have 8 minutes to deliver their remarks. I will be using a timer somewhere here. Yep. The time can be stopped short and given back for Q&A specific to that panelist or used up entirely by the individual. However, when the timer does go off, please wrap up and we'll move on to the next presenter. Once each panelist has spoken, there'll be 15 minutes for a Q&A with the panel and the community, the people on the call. If you're uncomfortable with public speaking or you want to remain anonymous with your question, you can put your question into the private or public chat channel and I will ask it for you. Questions are not limited to the topic of the day, which is career transition events, but take advantage of the expertise available on our panel this month. Please be succinct in your questions and direct them to a specific panelist or to the community if it's a more generic and general question about transition. If you have a complicated question, you are allowed to ask it to discover if there's a subject matter expert in the audience. But if a response would take longer than a couple minutes to address it, then I would recommend that you follow up after the event. After the Q&A, I will provide transition tips, which is an educational segment for a paradigm or process shift, or a recommendation or two resources that apply to the topic of the day. After the presentations, if you have not already, share in the public chat your POC, your point of contact, information, and how you serve or need support from the community. The chat will be saved and all attendees will get a cleaned up copy of that transcript, and you can follow up with each other as you like. I will do event announcements and then start wrapping up the event. All right. Our first presenter is our veteran entrepreneur. Dave Vodarick is an Army veteran. He owns several businesses with varying business models and is one of the ambassadors or city leaders for the Kansas City chapter of Bunker Labs, which is a resource that specifically supports veteran entrepreneurs. Dave will tell us a little bit of his story and about the Bunker Labs.
Okay, thanks, Emma. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I retired out of Fort Leavenworth in 2016, working up there at CAC. While I was in the process, got the wild hair to decide to jump into small business, but I wasn't ready to hire employees. So I got into some self-service ice machines. My wife and I got into sticker machines in elementary schools. And I really thought that was going to be the extent of that. I was going to work another 10, 15 years, get those businesses running, and then retire and just live off that money. And then 2020 came and I was working as a mechanical contractor, managing commercial operations for LBA, air conditioning, heating, and plumbing in Kansas City, building commercial buildings. And we had a downturn and got a little frustrated with where we were going in the company. So a buddy of mine started a BV Contracting Solutions, which is our current company right now. So we are a licensed general contractor focused on facilities, maintenance, and commercial tenant finish, commercial infills, remodels, things like that. So we've been doing that for 3 years now. If anyone has any questions about the construction industry, I'm pretty well tied in. I'm a committee member over at the Associated Builders and Contractors on their government affairs. I'm pretty tied in with the Leavenworth County Development Corporation as a chairman of the membership committee up there. And I belong to, I think now 5 chambers of commerce in the Kansas City area. So if anyone needs any connections, let me know. But what I'm here to talk to you about today, and one of my passions, is helping veteran entrepreneurs. So work very hard because I had a few people help me. In fact, I see one of them on the call, Troy, sat down and talked me through part of my transition process. It's been a long time since I've actually talked to him, so it's good to see him on here. But helping veteran entrepreneurs transition, I think, is key, whether it's into a job, obviously, or really in entrepreneurship. So what I learned getting involved with Bunker Labs, which is a nonprofit at the national level. So it's organized at the national level, but it's really executed locally at the city level by folks like me, Tom Meyer, and Stacy Huddleston and Dondi Dix, which are the city ambassadors here in Kansas City, is 49% of World War II veterans started their small business when they came back, right? Right now, the average percentage is 5.6% of veterans start their own business. But what we're finding is those that start their own business are actually very successful at it and have a lot of success in it. And 30% or veteran-owned businesses are 30% more likely to hire veterans than non-veteran-owned businesses. So what does that mean for all of us? That means that the more support that we can give to veteran entrepreneurs, the more veteran-owned companies that we can get going, the more likely we are to get additional veterans hired, in addition to the fact that we're going to grow our own economy, right? So Bunker Labs was founded in 2012 in Chicago. Initially started with some just in the Chicago area. Then they expanded to an online presence in 2015. And they ran what's called their first Veterans in Residence program, which is an incubator we'll talk about shortly, in 2017. And it's just continued to grow from there. So it's got three main programs. It's got their Launch Lab Online, which is designed to take veterans, military spouses, and family members who have an idea but don't know what to do with it, and run them through the ideation process to determine, number one, is entrepreneurship for them, right? Number two, is the idea that they have gonna take hold and be what they want it to be. And we've talked to a lot of folks who are like, well, I went through the Launch Lab Online and I just decided I don't want to be a veteran entrepreneur. I'm sorry. And we actually tell them that's exactly what we want, right? We want to assist them in that decision-making process early on, before they sink a lot of time, money, and effort into it and realize that maybe this isn't what's right for them. So we consider that not a failure, but a success if we can help that person make that decision on whether they want to be an entrepreneur or not. The second piece after that is the Veterans in Residence program. It's a 6-month business incubator for early stage startups who are really looking to gain market share or want to grow. It's open to all veterans, military spouses, and family members. It's managed by the national team, but facilitated here locally at the city level. We actually had our first one in late 2022 with 2 folks that participated. One was a financial advisor and one is a life coach. And it went really well. We're actually in the process of identifying folks who and getting them to apply for the cohort that will start in January of 2020. In July of 2023. So anyone that may be interested, I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a program that I went through early on in our stage here. And it was a big help connecting me to other veteran entrepreneurs, not just here in Kansas City, but across the nation. And that's where we really gain value from the Veterans in Residence program and from Bunkers. I can not only leverage veterans that I know here in Kansas City, but someone may have an idea that they've already done somewhere else in the country, and I can help connect those folks so that they can leverage the lessons learned from them. And then the third program is the CEO Circle. The CEO Circle is a 12-month mastermind group for the CEO or COO level for companies that are 1 million or above in revenue and are really looking to go into a growth mode or scale. It's a mastermind program where they bring together like members of the community through education, through peer evaluation or peer support, and really focus on growing the organization. So really from the ideation stage all the way up to a running CEO driven organization, Bunker's got something that can support all of that. Here in Kansas City, I actually participated in some of the early Bunker stuff back in 2016. And then through some attrition in folks and then COVID, it died off. So we stood it back up in 2022. We've executed one veteran in residence cohort in the end of 2022, and we're excited about kicking off another one in July of 2023. We have hosted one Bunker Connected event in the fall that focused on business funding. The one thing that we want to do is we want to drive networking events that include an educational piece that interests the veterans that are attending. And we've got a lot of connections. So Stacy Huddleston is in commercial lending. Tom Meyer does a lot of consulting. I'm in the construction industry. So we've got a lot of folks that we can leverage for that. We're working to build our calendar for this year for events. So I'd love to connect with anyone that's interested in participating in either helping mentor or participating in as a veteran or a military spouse in our organization. And are always looking for new connections. My ultimate goal, much like everyone else, is to be able to bring together the veteran-owned business owners of Kansas City. Because everywhere we go, I can't tell you how many connections I've made that have basically shortened the timeline of the relationship growing by realizing that either they're a veteran, they're a family member of a veteran, or they just are a strong supporter, and it's immediately moved that relationship forward quicker. So we love to say we're nationally connected and locally thriving at Bunker. And everything we can do to support is open to us. So open to any questions at the end. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. You've gotten that down. Yeah, 30 seconds left. All right, we will go ahead and move on to the next presenter. Thank you very much, Dave.
You bet.
All right. Oops. Here, set this. All right. Our next presenter is representing our community organization. Bob Jardon is also an Army veteran, and he is the Transition Services Manager for the Fort Leavenworth Transition Assistance Center. He is also directly associated with the Greater Kansas City Veterans Career Fair. He'll inform us about the services of the Transition Center and potentially give us a heads up on some of this year's career fairs on post as well as in town. Bob, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are.
Okay, welcome to be here. I'm going to give you a quick less than 8-minute overview of the TAP program. So our main goal is to give all our transitioning soldiers that knowledge, skills, and self-confidence that they can transition and work be competitive and work in the global workforce. And we also want them to go back to the community with a good positive attitude when they leave the Army. There's not too many companies out there that's going to give you a full paid week to learn how to get another job when you leave that company. But the Army does that, and overall the Department of Defense does that. And so it helps our retention and recruiting. You go back to the community, say, hey, the Army really treated me nice on the way out, gave me all these skills, helped me start a business, certifications, and so they become good ambassadors for the Army. In our office, we have 10 people. We have transition counselors, finance counselors. We have a VA benefits and service person in the office. We work closely with the Chamber of Commerce, Hiring Our Heroes. And then we have our own career skills program, where in the last 6 months of service on those two programs, soldier can go out, internship with a company. They can get certification from the company, on the job training. And right now we have close to 159 people this fiscal year since October that either starting the program or getting ready to start the program. And so it's very successful for us. We see about 500 new soldiers each year come through, and I think we're going to have over 50% this year participate in that. And just for like one number, the Hiring Our Heroes for Fort Leavenworth, the average is around 98% hiring rate and close to the mid to upper $90,000 on the job offers. And any company that wants to do that, they can contact us, and we can get that set up. Soldiers can do an individual career skills program, or the Hiring Our Heroes is still the same thing. They go out, companies that are involved, and they pick the soldier they want, and the soldier picks the company they want. So it's a good chance for each to try out each other and see if it's a good fit for as they move forward. We also work with outside agencies. Department of Labor does our employment workshops. We work with the Small Business Administration. They do the Boots to Business. These are all 2-day seminars. We provide an education and a certification workshops. And then there's other people in the community that Kansas University will come in and provide additional training. And then there's other companies that'll do that for us. The TAP program really started, it started in the 90s, but around the mid 2000s, the unemployment rate for veterans was up around 10%. Soldiers were getting out, didn't know what their benefits were. So Congress, Secretary of the Army, they made this a mandatory statutory program. And Department of the Army was spending around $500 million a year paying for unemployment compensation. Soldiers get out, wouldn't get a job. They go to the state, and the state would give that job back to the Army to pay, and that's unfinanced. So it would come out of training, promotions, PCS moves. So it was really a big hit. $1 billion a year, Department of Defense. So since they made the program mandatory, the December unemployment rates for nationally were 3.5, but for veterans, we're around 3.0, 3.02. We distinguish between veterans and the Gulf War veterans. And for females, those numbers are 1.8 average unemployment. And for men, it's a little bit higher, 3.3. So it's gone down. That 500 billion has gone down to like 50 to 60 million dollars. So it's been a money saver for the Army. And for this last quarter, we only had 9 people that got unemployment. So that cost the state of Kansas $92,000. But in the past, it's been several hundred thousands. This on the program, they can start 24 months out. They're retired. They're separating. 18 months. We're kind of a one-stop shop. Like we said, we do all those classes on what their MOS is. How does that transfer to civilian side? We do a gap analysis. Okay, I want to be an engineer, but I don't have the schooling. So there's my gap. What do I got to do to make that up so I can be successful when I get out? Again, it's a lifetime. If you're retired, you can always come back. We won't turn you away. We say if you're separating, you got 6 months, but if you come to Fort Leavenworth, we're still going to take care of you. Events coming up, the main one for us is 31 January, the Greater Kansas City Veterans Fair at Overland Park Convention Center. If you still want to get in on that, if you know a company, I tried putting the flyer in the chat box, but it kicked me off of the Zoom, so I won't do that. But if you want to email me, I can send you both of those. Tomorrow, we're going to shoot out the vendors list. I think we have close to 130 right now. And then we do 3 career fairs on post, April, August, and November. Usually have over 100 vendors, and anywhere from 200 to 300 transitioning soldiers or veterans will attend that. Okay, how much time I have, Emma? That's pretty much the overview of the company or of the
It's a couple minutes
program.
Yeah, there's a couple of minutes left in your 8 minutes. So we actually have some time to get a specific question for you. If there's someone who has a question for you.
Yep.
Anyone have a specific question?
Robert, could you
go ahead?
Can you kindly leave that information on that Greater Kansas City Overland Park event in chat?
I will try it again towards the end and see.
Yes, sir.
I tried dropping it in there and then my screen went blank.
Okay.
Oh, so, no, what we can send it out.
I'll email it to Emma.
Yeah, you can send it out to me, and then when I send out the information with the transcript and the video link, that'll be part of it. But I think there's a website, right, that people can go to. If you
there's a website on that.
Yeah, if you can drop that into the chat, it should be able to be shared in the program today.
Well, the last thing I'll add is we do have an opening for the Career Skills Program Installation Administrator. It just requires a bachelor's degree. Anybody interested in that, they can email me that on the email that I left in chat. We can get them that information. I think that's all I have.
I've got a question. Are the events, the career events, are they open to the public for folks who have already separated and still kind of looking for an opportunity, or is it just for folks who are coming out of the program now?
Oh, no, this is open to transitioning soldiers, veterans, family members, dependents, the one in Kansas City, and the same for ours. It's open.
Okay.
For us, if you can get on post, you can come to ours, and the one in Overland Park, you know, they're not checking cards or anything. So if you want to come and sign, but you know, the focus is on the veterans and transitioning soldiers and their family members.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you so much, Bob.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right. Moving on to our third organizational representative. Our next presenter is representing a military-friendly company. Troy Carlson is the founder and CEO for Initiatives Incorporated, which specializes in strategic business and enterprise development. He's also a member of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Committee and supports transitioning military through Astrum U. Troy will share with us a bit about his company and how he is military friendly with his work, events, and activities. Troy, you there?
Yes, thank you, Emma. There's a lot to pack in, but I will do it in 8 minutes. My company does projects for organizations. We serve private sector investors, companies, universities, municipalities. We actually help organizations launch into areas that they want to expand in, but they don't know quite how to do it. And a little about 2.5 years ago, I was approached by the president of the Junction City Chamber. They had an investor group wanted to come into Junction City to set up an innovation accelerator to start utilizing talent coming out of Fort Riley for development of the Army of 2035, but also for other private sector ventures. They brought me in to take a look at it, basically said that is probably not the right strategy to start with because there's a huge capital outlay. But one of the things that I noticed about Junction City is they are sitting on a huge wellspring of talent coming out of the fort to the tune of about anywhere from 22 to 2,900 soldiers a year. And a lot more could be done for Junction City to retain a lot more of these soldiers, but also for the region to retain these soldiers. Fort Riley has about 15,000 active duty soldiers. There's no other, at least in the state of Kansas, there's no other military installation that many soldiers. I'm not quite sure if Leavenworth even has that many. I could be wrong. With about 18,000 family members, there's about 29,000 veterans and retired military in the area. And there's about 5,600 civilians working on the fort as well. We wanted to figure out how do we transition soldiers, first off, coming out of the military, going through TAP into in-demand roles where they can actually meet their full potential with the skill sets that they bring into the civilian sector and in the private market. One of the issues is that it's very difficult for the private sector to understand the language of the military and vice versa. Soldiers get out of the military, they have amazing skills that they can offer to the private, to companies, but companies oftentimes in their hiring practices just simply don't understand how that would relate to them, even though those skills are very applicable with what their needs are. So we brought in a company called Astrum U, which is uses AI and machine learning to help identify people for skills that would otherwise be overlooked by conventional recruiting methods. Oftentimes, people have heard, say, for instance, musicians can make great coders because they understand the same thought patterns. Cybersecurity analysts really look for people with a certain mindset, much people who are focused on security, and then they can teach the functional competencies afterwards. And what we want to be able to do is open up for soldiers in a very metrics-driven way. Once they get out of the military, where should I go to start my career in the civilian sector? And Astrum U is a key piece of helping these soldiers get on the right start to really get into an occupation that really complements who they are and what their skill set brings to the table. Junction City is backing this project through the chamber. We have just opened up a career transition center, a de facto career transition center at the Junction City Chamber, and we have hosted events for one major employer here in Kansas City, Terracon. They met with the soldiers and actually worked with them on resume writing and interviewing skills, and they're going to be coming back again to Junction City to build that relationship on an ongoing basis. We also have participated in the program T-Mobile, Evergy, P1 Group, and we just signed on UMB Bank. And we have several others that are coming into the program as well. But essentially, we are looking at making Junction City a wellspring of talent. And we are in the process of looking at a building that is in Junction City to develop a bigger career transition center. We were talking to training providers in IT, also in the building trades, and they're looking at setting up shop in Junction City to provide training services for the soldiers, but also for their families, for their spouses, for the high school age kids, and for the public writ large in Junction City, because everything's more or less touched by the military in Junction City. And there's such an untapped potential within the talent base there that we really want to make Junction City. I guess the word I'm trying to look for is how do we actually maximize that talent base and get them into the right roles into the civilian sector. It's a win for Fort Riley because more soldiers want to go there. If they find that when they get out, they can have these services that are available. And as far as I know, and anybody on this call can correct me, we're not aware of any other community that's set up a career transition center to complement what the Fort already has off base, which is just about 8 minutes away from from Fort Riley. So we're really developing Junction City really into this comprehensive career transition city that's focused on developing talent. And Junction City wins because a lot of the soldiers and their families will stay, they will be upskilled, and that increases their tax base, and it also attracts more business as well. So I hope this all makes sense, but that's in a nutshell what we're doing. And I think we've got about another minute and a half, and I can open it up for questions.
Okay, we've got a couple minutes for Troy's 8-minute period. Anybody have a specific question of Troy?
If you don't, that's fine. I won't get stumped. That's great.
We can roll right into the community Q&A, but I do have a question. So you're doing a lot of the events specifically in the Junction City area. Are you plugged in with similar events in Kansas City, those type of events?
Getting more plugged into that. I'm going to go to the Veterans event on January 30th, I think it is, or 31st. It's on my calendar. I'm also connecting slowly but surely and methodically with different organizations. Matter of fact, Mike Kinney with Warriors Ascent. I was introduced to Mike through Father Justin with Reconciliation Services, and we are in discussions with a major healthcare provider here in Kansas City, and the CEO of the hospital is a former Air Force doctor, and now is the CEO. Spent 7 years in the Air Force, and this company is extraordinarily veteran friendly. So we met with him, and they've done work with war horses for veterans. And really the discussion was, how do we get the veterans communities? There's so many disparate, great organizations in Kansas City. And Emma, I know you're doing your work on that and lifting a heavy load, but how do we get them tied together to where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts? Yeah. And so one of the things that we want to do is if there are veterans in Kansas City that want to enroll in ASTRMU, it's free. The engine works better the more people they have, and they can help identify for these veterans in Kansas City what roles the metrics show that they should take a hard look at. So if anybody here, I forgot my email on the chat portion, knows of veterans that would be interested in signing up through the ASTRMU process, we'd be happy to get them in, no charge. And not a whole lot to lose. They just need to submit their JST and answer a few questions, and we can get them set up and they can start getting matches.
Perfect. Okay, we will go ahead and start the community question and answer period. Let me reset my timer for 15 minutes. And this is where we can specifically ask questions of our panelists and their expertise in what it is that they are about organizationally and individually, but also if there is general transition assistance questions to ask of the community. So who has a question and for whom? Anybody have a question?
I have a question for Robert. So still closely tied, living up in Leavenworth County, just south of Lansing. have attempted over the years to try to offer the opportunity to connect with veterans that are staying in the local area and connect them into Kansas City, but haven't had a lot of success with that, with connecting with the right person, either at Fort Leavenworth or I see Troy now out of Fort Riley. Like, what can we do? We've got a very robust network of veteran entrepreneurs and senior business leaders in the Kansas City area, but I can't find a way, or haven't talked to anyone that's been successful in finding a way to bridge that gap between us and those coming through SIFL TAP. So.
I don't see my unmute button here, but
There we go.
yeah, if you got an event or something coming up, if you shoot us the flyer, we can market that on our social media. We still maintain that 1,500 mailing list of soldiers that's either transitioning or have transitioned. More entrepreneur, the Small Business Administration does our 2-day Boots to Business workshop. You might have went through it when you were there.
Yep.
I
guess I'm looking for more of a way to serve as mentors, or to link them and connect them to other new contacts in Kansas City outside of the post. I mean, that's the strength of us as business owners, is our networks. And that's really what's lacking for those folks that are transitioning out. So.
Yeah, I mean, we could market a little bit, with the Small Business Administration. They're doing they got the contract for doing that entrepreneur, the Boots to Business. But, we could link you up there and see what they do, because sometimes they'll have those guest speakers comes in.
Okay. And
that's usually a pretty good sized class on that.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about whether or not that was still offered, because I did attend the Boots to Business workshop. I didn't have an idea really of what I might do as an entrepreneur, but it was one of these things in my last few months on active duty. I was just curious. I was like, okay, so what's this all about? And there was actually something that I got invited back to speak, because a year or so later, I was in a business, and I talked a little bit about some of the risk assessment and mitigation as far as a business mindset for insurance and all the different flavors of that. Right. So, yeah, glad that you are still doing it. Is it very routine or not?
Doing that 4 times a year. If it's,
okay.
And we always could add classes. We used to do the Kaufman Fast Track,
right?
But they kind of went to virtual online, and it just didn't make sense for us to keep offering that. But that was both of those were very successful. But we're still doing Boots to Business.
Okay. And is that regular, like the career fairs that you
we
mentioned?
do it 4 times a year.
Okay.
We're always able to add additional classes later in the year if it looks like there's a need for it.
Do you have
they bring in
months?
They bring in the legal team, they bring in a banker, it's just a whole how to start a business, different
it's
types
a 2-day workshop, or is it longer than that?
2-day workshop.
Okay.
And then
I'd like to get the information on when you have those, because is that just for folks in the SFL TAP, or is that open to veterans?
Pretty much the transitioning soldiers, but it's on a space available for veterans.
Okay.
Hey, Robert.
Sorry, I was going to say, I work for VetBiz, and VetBiz is the VBOC that does the Boots to Business. Mitch Fitzpatrick is actually the training coordinator that does that for the on-post Boots to Business. They also host reboots, which are half-day workshops, which kind of condense everything into the half days. If you want more information on that, you can also email Mitch or myself, and we can get that information to you.
Okay. Is there an equivalent Boots to Business that is in town off the installation, or is that what you're referring to as the reboot?
You can do the reboot. It's going to be entirely online, but if somebody wanted access to post, they can always just contact Mitch, and Mitch can get them a pass so they can go.
Okay.
Hey, Robert, I had a couple questions for you. So I was a career reservist, so I never, went through that actual transitioning process. Kind of curious, what kind of events do you guys advertise to your soldiers, sailors, and airmen when it comes to their transitioning program outside of the career fairs? So I know you got your personal development workshops and stuff like that. What are you doing? I guess kind of, what do they go through right now? Kind of like as Dave was mentioning, to connect them with the business owners out and stuff like that outside of the actual career fairs. Is there anything else that you guys do?
Well, for Hiring Our Heroes Career Skills Program, there's a different networking events that they host, which gives
Okay.
a chance for the transitioning soldiers. Chamber of Commerce hosted one a couple weeks ago or last month. HOH, they try to do several of those during a cohort. Just different businesses will host it, different companies will come in. For ourselves, we'll do a career skills employer days. And that's where we bring in 4, 5, 6 companies. They're interested in doing career skill programs with us, but they'll be available, and we'll do a skill day where soldiers can come in, and then we'll give a block of time to each company, and they can discuss, what that company does, what they're offering. And then we always offering employment events. If a company does do a one-on-one with us, we'll set up, market it for them, set a time on post. We try to do it a week that we're having a class that helps kind of get more soldiers there, because it's all volunteer, nothing's mandatory. So we may get 1 soldier to come, or we may get 40 soldiers to come. So we can't guarantee anything, but we'll set up individual 1 hour, 2 hour employer events where the soldiers can come in and talk one-on-one with the companies.
And when that happens, does the employer need to initiate it, or do you guys have someone that reaches out, to businesses throughout the area consistently? Is it the advisors of the, big companies, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's both. We'll, whenever we got a new company saying, hey, how can I advertise or something, we got the invite letter, and it lays out, do a CSP, do an HOH, or we can do individual events, or we can do career fairs with you. Sometimes we'll reach out that way, or every career fair, we mention it to everybody attending, that we're available to market their events or market their job, or send it out on their mailing list. So it's a two-way street. Sometimes they'll come to us, but we're always looking for new companies to add for either the career skills program or the career fair.
Okay, thanks.
All right, very good. Other questions? Great questions, by the way. I have a question of Dave for the Bunker Labs. Do you have the events that you mentioned were like cohort programs that are kind of a apply or self-nominate eligibility criteria to be met and whatnot? Do you have kind of general networking socials to where people can just be in the space and proximity of folks who are business owners and whatnot, just kind of
Yeah, absolutely. So we hosted one towards the end of the year. I think it was in October, if I remember correctly, or November. And we're actually looking to have 3 or 4 more this year with a networking aspect, a little bit of education, and then a closeout networking aspect. That way we can have the opportunity to pass a little knowledge that's relevant to the veteran entrepreneurs, but also give them the opportunity to ask questions, to link up with other folks, and really develop the network that builds business. So.
Okay.
I had another question about that. Do you guys have here in Kansas City an in-person entrepreneur in residence program going on right now?
We had one, our first one in July of last year started. So we ran July to December. We don't have one right now, but we will start another one in July. So we're looking for folks that want to participate in that. So
cool. Yeah, I was part of the Seattle cohort, previous startup, and then I left. I was like, you know what, I want to get involved in Kansas City, and then I was like, oh, nothing's going on. So just wanted to double check, make sure I was correct.
We'll be kicking another one off in July.
Cool.
The networking socials that I was asking, is that going to be like a quarterly?
Our goal is to our goal is to do them quarterly. Yes.
Okay.
So
all right, very good, very good. Other questions for our panel or for the community?
I have a question. Can you
Uh-huh,
hear
go
me?
ahead. Yep, go ahead, Juan.
Hi, my name is Juan Lee, first time visitor, and I'm not in you all's local area. And I was wondering if anyone has any connections, any VSOs in my area. I'm in Maryland. And I was wondering if anyone had any connections in this area. I have a nonprofit that's wanting to deal with mainly education, mental health, and financial support for veterans.
I will say yes. The Bunker Labs, David could speak to as
Yeah.
far as the national resources available there, but a lot of the time when we have our panelists, they are local because I am in Kansas City, but their network is far exceeding just this geography. And one of the things that I always share is the military support network through associations is rather large, and it is also national and international. Dave and I, for example, are part of the leadership team here in Kansas City AUSA chapter. That's the Association of United States Army. And depending on where you are in the state, I am sure that there's probably several chapters in the state. How close you are to one may not be so close, but it is worth investigating as far as some of the association chapters that are available nationally and even internationally, depending on the group.
Yeah, Juan, from a Bunker Labs perspective, there's a Baltimore location, there's a Washington, D.C. location, there's a Philadelphia location. I'm not sure where exactly you're at in Maryland. I actually grew up in Pittsburgh, so relatively familiar with that area. Both my brothers live outside Baltimore and Bel Air. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. The other thing that Bunker does for folks that aren't located near a city that has a program, they also run virtual cohorts for their veterans residence program. That's actually what I did originally because Kansas City did not have one at the time. Really, it's trying to maximize the knowledge and the ability to connect veterans together. So,
okay, thank you.
Very good. We have time for probably one more question. We're just short of 2 more minutes left in our Q&A period. Anyone have another question? I have a question for Troy. So for AstroMU, I understand it just kind of at a high level that it helps to translate military skills into translatable, understandable to civilian employers. Is that done through some type of a database, some type of a survey, or is it some type of software AI, or what is it?
It's a database that is proprietary to AstroMU. They have a whole cadre of data analysts and IT folks that are putting this together. I mean, they are developing. They are continually develop the code, and it gets better with time. AstroMU actually started out working with universities, and they have several universities participating with them. Actually, University of Kansas is an investor in AstroMU, but essentially they got their start by working with students and helping universities get them placed into in-demand roles, regardless of what their major was, and to identify those students for those roles so they could actually show metrics that they are getting these students when they graduate, that they're going out and finding meaningful work. So that base started out. Now we've pivoted about 2 years ago to military, and we're building up that database as we speak. And essentially, anybody who's exiting the military is from a data perspective, if you're a veteran, there's not a distinguishing factor. We look at both. And essentially what they do is look at the entire individual. They don't just look at their functional competencies, but they look at their values, their characteristics, their attributes from a very comprehensive level, because those the process not only identifies what roles you should be in, but also which company you should be working for.
Okay, very good.
And because if we get, yeah, we look at the culture of a company. If they participate, we look at that. We work closely with their HR team. We identify what their in-demand roles are. What does it make for that individual be successful in that particular company, and we match it to each soldier and each veteran.
All right, very good. And access to that is free as far as that.
For enrolling, yes. For a company,
okay.
they pay, but yeah, for
Okay.
anybody.
Okay, that's great. All right. Well, we are done with our Q&A period as far as the timer goes. We will move on to the transition tips. Thank you, everyone, for your presentations about your individual organizations and participating in the Q&A. So where we're at now, Toops Consulting is focused on supporting students and adults in life school, career, or business transitions. However, in this segment of the program, I'm not going to talk about our business, but provide transition tips pertaining to the topic of the day, which is career transition events. Today's tips will be some insights and perspective regarding paradigm shifts pertaining to that topic. All right, so what are career transition events? So we've heard from our presenters today several kind of examples of what they might be: happy hours or socials, career fairs, more targeted engagement opportunities with executives or company personnel in small groups, informational interviews. What I'd like you to take away in a paradigm shift today is that, to expand your ideas for what is a transition event. Recognize that nearly all encounters and conversations that you have with non-military, if you are a service person in transition, is a learning opportunity, thus a career transition event. Also acknowledge that each type of event has potential expectations that are routine for how you show up, your appearance, your behavior, your language, and even follow-up actions that may not be routine for the service person. So what do I mean? What are some expectations inherent for a networking, social, or a happy hour event? Okay. In the military, we have certain events that are very familiar. Right arm night, a hail and farewell, or a battalion ball. These are examples of events where it's kind of an obligatory social requirement to show up by virtue of your position or respect to another person's position in the organization. And your attendance or absence can convey a message to others and affect perceptions of you in your professional role. Now, these events may or may not occur routinely, but when they do, the expectations for how you show up, how you dress, how you behave is relatively well understood by those who are invited. Now, in the non-military environment, there are very little to no obligatory social requirements. Okay, these events are voluntary, but they can be adamantly requested, right? Or some influencer in the office kind of push your willingness to go. But the perception of you attending or not doesn't necessarily have a significant consequence, right? If attending a networking or social or happy hour, perceptions of you are more likely going to be influenced on your behaviors, not merely the fact that you are there or not there, right? The expectations for appearance, dress, or behavior, they're not necessarily universally the same. And sometimes we'll need clarification to those who are invited. What are some expectations inherent to a career fair event? In the military, career fairs are kind of not a thing for those who are already in the service. Each branch has assignment officers, detailers, branch managers, and these people are the source of career opportunities outside of the immediate chain of command for additionally assigned duties or projects. Opportunities for formal military education is also not easily accessible outside of assignment officers or the chain of command. Any career opportunity usually has a service obligation associated with it, or it may require an endorsement or a nomination or some other formal recommendation. How you are eligible or meet requirements for these growth opportunities are typically a reputation amongst senior leaders or an order of merit list, or you have demonstrated and have been observed in your performance of your duties. And your career achievements may also be part of the selection process, which you don't necessarily have to advertise because it is readily available to senior leaders in your officer record brief or your non-commissioned officer record brief. In the non-military environment, career fairs happen very regularly. People will go to these even if they're perfectly satisfied in their current employment, just to see what opportunities might exist elsewhere. Some people will go as market research to learn about services, products, innovations for potential business development or even partnerships, or to mingle with those folks who are the talent pool that are searching. The expectations for how to show up and engage vary based on the audience and the individual purpose for the person who is attending. So how do you know if you're showing up appropriately? You want to know your purpose for being there. Know the purpose of the other people who you're encountering, what they're there for, right? And you can refine how you show up to them and how you communicate, and you can refine your decision-making process or your plans for your purpose for being there. You have to be ready to communicate your value and purpose to others if you are a job seeker. Why consider you over any other candidate, right? Is a question that person you're encountering is going to have in mind when they meet you. What are some expectations inherent for informal or for a formal interview or informational interview? In the military, these aren't necessarily referred to as that. They're not common by virtue of the structured performance assessment system that is in our routine with raters and senior raters. Informal mentoring, coaching, or professional development through observation or proximity to leaders is kind of built into the environment. We don't manage the access to career opportunities directly, but through relationships with decision makers and the system at large. We understand what growth opportunities exist, and then we can pursue them to a certain degree. In the non-military environment, periodic evaluations or performance reviews may or may not have a discipline structure. So having informal or formal coaching or mentoring sometimes is self-initiated and often are paid services. The routine for the hiring process is usually well understood by most civilian job seekers, but asking for an informational interview and how to conduct them, as well as doing formal interviews, those are things that are pretty familiar with non-military private sector job seekers. So good communication is always necessary. If you're showing up in an environment where people don't already know you, you can't assume that they're going to know anything about you because most likely they won't. How should they? Networking can be very difficult, but you need to be prepared in how you engage and encounter others. The Purple Connection is a community of organizations and business professionals who want to and can expedite gaining access to knowledge and to resources and organizations. So be cognizant of the gaps that you may have in your knowledge or behaviors and seek out the appropriate experts to help you. All right, that's what I've got for transitions tips today. We'll move on and start wrapping up the event. All right, if you're interested in continuing to participate more intentionally in facilitated conversations on various transition topics, I invite you to consider becoming an American Warrior of the ACA Business Club. There's a lot of benefits in becoming a member of the club, to include access to the various business club facilities that we have here in Kansas City, as well as other metros across the country. We also have some clubs standing up in areas overseas. We have multiple interest groups that you would have access to. The American Warriors is only one of over 20. You can join a business development team, have access to all the different organized and sponsored events of the club, and have access to networking and learning opportunities, as well as members through the club directory. And those opportunities to connect and learn are every week. There's leadership opportunities for you to step up into leadership for teams, groups, or a club. So lots of a variety of how you might encounter and engage with people in the club environment. The Purple Connection and Strengths Profile are events that we host in Toops Consulting, and we encourage American Warriors to participate, invite guests to those things as often as they can. Other engagement opportunities for American Warriors and their guests are the monthly discussion roundtables, the semi-annual social and guest speaker program, and again, stepping up to leadership opportunities on committees at the club or executive committee. For future events, next week is the monthly American Warriors Discussion Roundtable. This is an event that can be attended in person at the Overland Park Club or via Zoom. The topic of this month is Introduction to Professional Certifications. You can contact me if you are interested in attending for an address for the club if you want to come in person, or if you want to attend virtually. Next month's American Warriors event is a social and guest speaker program, so save the date for February 23rd if you are local here in the greater Kansas City metro. That event will be in person at the Shawnee ACA Business Club. We will have 5 veterans who comprise the guest speaker program. And then the Purple Connection, again, as you know, is the 3rd Thursday of each month. It will be February 16th next month. The focus will be on digital communication. Next slide. Here is the lineup for next month's program. A couple of the presenters have been approached, but still tentative as far as confirming their participation. But our veteran entrepreneur is going to be Ed Ogazali, and representing Send Text. Community organization tentatively will be Tom Esselman, who is the executive director for PCs for People. And our military-friendly company representative tentatively will be someone who represents the Veteran Resource Group of T-Mobile. I think Nick Ayers is not going to be available, but I'm looking to have someone else from their resource group be the presenter. And then I will give the transition tips as usual. Check out our transition services at our website if you are unfamiliar with our work. We just recently launched our new website, so it's much easier now to understand what our pillars of service are. The Purple Connection is in the community part of our veteran transition assistance pillar, but we do also offer individualized transition support as well. You can go to our website and navigate to the information that is pertinent to your transition, or for those that are in your circles who might need some support. Next slide. The Purple Connection now also has an online presence. You can go to thepurpleconnection.com, which lands you on the community page of our website. You can use this to refer people to become part of the Purple Connection community, get on our email distribution for event announcements, or to refer to them refer to the community as far as resources available for their transition. Next slide. Contact me at my email address, or you can send me a request for an appointment. For anything that was presented in the program or for future events, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and feel free to request a discovery call or ask your questions of me when you have them. All right. Thank you, everybody. We did go just a little bit long. Thank you for sticking around. Have a very good evening. Follow up with each other, and we will see you at a future event.